Everybody, and welcome to this evening's executive meeting of the Exeter City Council, which is being conducted virtually on this occasion. Welcome to all the members of the public on this cold evening. You'll be pleased to know that all the members have read and understood the standing orders. We know who the chair is, and we're all under control within this virtual meeting. So I'll move on and ask for any apologies. Or we need to do the roll call first. Let's do the roll call. Mark, please do the roll call, please.
Thank you, Chair. Could members please state you're present when I call your names, please? Councillor Bialik.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Sutton.
Present, sorry.
Thank you.
Out of order, yeah.
Councillor Fole.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Kassane.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Morse.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Pearson.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Wood.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Wright.
Present.
Thank you very much. To confirm, we also have Councillors Ledbetter and Mitchell in attendance as opposition leaders, Chair, and I'll just do the roll call of officers in attendance as well. So Chief Executive and Growth Director Kareem Hassan.
Present.
Thank you. Director of Net Zero Exeter City Management David Bartram.
Present.
Thank you. Director of Culture, Leisure and Tourism John Paul Hedge.
Present.
Thank you. Director of Finance, David Hodson.
Present.
Thank you. Corporate Manager of Democratic and Civic Support, John Street.
Present.
Thank you. Service Lead for Environmental Health and Community Safety, Simon Lane.
Present.
Thank you. Corporate Manager of Executive Support, Bruce Luxton.
Present.
Thank you. HR Business Manager, John Cook.
Present.
Thank you. Growth and Commercialisation Manager, Victoria Hatfield.
Present.
Thank you. Electoral Services Manager, Jeff Chalk.
Yep. Present.
Thank you. Assistant Service Lead Planning, City Development, Roger Clotworthy.
Present.
Thank you. And we have myself and Howard Bassett as Democratic Service Officers in attendance, Chair, and we are fully quorate to proceed with no apologies.
Thank you very much, Mark. I'll move on to item 2, which is for me to sign the minutes of the executive of the 12th of January 2021. Are you all agreed that I sign those as a true record of that meeting? I just have a few nods. Thank you very much.
Yep, that looks unanimous, Chair.
Yep, thank you, Mark. Just to remind us all, if we have any interest to declare, please declare them at the appropriate time. The item 4 is the local government access to information, exclusion of the press in public, and we do have 2 items at the end of the meeting, which we will go into part 2, and we will formally move that at the time. We've received no public questions for this particular meeting, and I'll move on now to item 6, which is an urgent decision, which is a delegated decision, and I understand John Street, you will just talk us over this one, will you? Is it John to talk us over this? It's for noting, there's no recommendation at all. John.
Yes, thanks, Leader. It is just for noting. It's worth noting that all directors have the ability to take urgent decisions where it is not feasible to wait for the next council meeting, and any delay in such a decision could jeopardise that decision. But it is also part of the standing orders that that decision must be reported to the next available executive. So as detailed on the frontispiece of the agenda, this urgent decision was taken by Bindu Arjun in consultation with you, Leader, and also in accordance with standing orders. The chair of the Strategic Scrutiny Committee also agreed that it was a matter of urgency and agreed to that. This matter is just for noting.
Thank you very much, John. So that's duly noted. Move on to item 7, which is the General Fund HRA Estimates and Capital Programme 21-22. There are some recommendations here on item 7, and a number of recommendations, and we'll go straight to David Bartram. Not David Hodgson even. I gave him a slight worry then. David Hodgson, if you'd like to talk us through the recommendations in the paper, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is the key report that sets out the budget proposals in respect of the General Fund HRA and the capital programme for 2021-22, and ultimately enables you, the council, to make a decision and set the council tax for the City of Exeter on the 23rd of February. This report builds on the budget strategy which you considered at your meeting on the 12th of January this year, so I don't intend to go back through that. Just a few key points to highlight. The final settlement has now been published by the government. It was published last Thursday and will be debated tomorrow in Parliament. There are no changes to report from the provisional settlement, so the figures that are set out in the report still stand. Exeter's core spending power is the same as last year, so you will have seen the government announcing a 4.5, now 4.6% increase in core spending power for local government as a whole, but actually Exeter will stay the same, and that is entirely dependent on you setting a council tax increase of £5. So if we choose not to set an increase of £5, which is the maximum available to you without going to referendum, then we would see a reduction in our spend from last year. And to put that into context, inflation increases alone have added £817,000 to the budget this year. So there's no significant savings proposed in the budget for next year. And reserves, I'm pleased to say, are above the minimum level set by myself, the Section 151 officer. They are projected to drop close to the minimum over the medium-term financial plan, but current plans mean that it will remain above that minimum level of £3 million. Just to remind members, there is a medium-term financial plan requirement to save £6 million. And work on that has already begun. The HRA medium-term financial plan also shows minimum reserve levels remaining above the £4 million set, but it does drop close to that £4 million minimum level in 2023-24. So I'm pleased to set out proposals for a balanced budget in line with your legal responsibilities. And as usual, the final papers enabling you to set the council tax will be tabled at the council tax on the council on the 23rd of February, once Devon County Council, the police and fire have set their elements. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, David. Just a couple of quick points of clarification. You told us what the minimum reserve is, the £3 million. The £5 increase, let's just remind ourselves, that's £5 per year on a council tax band D, which is approximately 10 pence per week, which means the council tax for band D is about £3.19 per week. Okay, multiplied by 52, so we're about £150, £160. So when you so I'm talking to the public now, when you see that big bill land on your mat, although it says Exeter City Council on the top, it's only about £3.19 per week is what we take from all of that. It needs to be reminded of everybody. So I'll throw, I'm not sure, I've got no indication from the leaders of the opposition that they wish to make a contribution. So I'll go straight to any members of the executive wish to contribute. No, I feel sure we'll have a full debate on the budget on the 23rd of February. And that gives the leaders of the opposition plenty of time to tell us what a good job we've done in the last year. So
thank you. Yeah, Leader, I'll comment at the full council. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Councillor Better. Okay, so I'll move that we recommend those. Do you want to put the? Yeah, well done, Mark. So these are the recommendations. Okay, I'll move those recommendations from the chair. If I can have a seconder, please.
Seconded, Chair.
Rachel, Councillor Sutton, thank you very much. All those in favour? Can I take it, Des? Thank you very much.
That's unanimous, Chair. The recommendations have been carried.
Thank you very much, Mark. So we'll move on to item agenda 8, which is the capital strategy for 21-22. And here we have a recommendation. So if I can ask again, Dave Hodgson, Finance Officer, please. Dave, to talk to your paper, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is the first of 3 papers that support the budget and are statutory requirements for Council to approve, and they set the boundaries for financial decisions that are taken throughout the year. So this first paper, the capital strategy, sets out the governance, funding and stewardship arrangements for the capital programme. No significant changes to the previous year, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Yes, and just as we do, just to say that the last bullet point on page 65 says that all forecasters are collated by the finance team and reported to the executive and council on a quarterly basis. So there's always an opportunity at that time. I see there are no blue hands up or yellow hands now up for this point.
No, I can see any hands.
No, okay, Mark. If there are nobody else making a contribution, I'm going to move the recommendation from the chair.
Seconded, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. Can I have an indication of support for that, please? Okay, Mark.
That's a unanimous vote, Chair. The recommendations have been carried.
Thank you very much, Mark. Move on to item 9 now, which is the Prudential Code for Capital Finance in Local Authorities, which incorporates the annual statement of minimum revenue provision. And here we've got a recommendation with 2 points into it. Dave Hodgson.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the second of those reports. And this sets out the key indicators that are used to control capital expenditure within the authority and also to set the policy for minimum revenue provision. In terms of the prudential indicators, highly complex set of indicators, 3 key ones that members really should be comfortable with. Firstly, the capital financing requirement, that's our projected underlying need to borrow as a council. Secondly, the operational boundary. And thirdly, the authorised limit. I'll take those 2 together. Those set the boundaries of the maximum amount that I am able to borrow on behalf of the council. So very important figures that are set. The operational boundary roughly around the same level as the capital financing requirement, authorised limit slightly higher to enable us to undertake day-to-day borrowing as required. In terms of the MRP policy, there's no changes to the policy that we've used. So we tend to repay our debt on an annuity basis, which works in much the same way as a repayment mortgage. You pay a bit of the principal back and the interest. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, David. I've got no indications, no hands up to speak on this matter. Therefore, I will move this along and I will move the recommendations from the chair.
Seconded, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. If I can have indication of support for that, please. Thank you.
That's a unanimous vote, Chair. The recommendation has been carried.
Thank you, Mark. I'll move on to item 10 now, which is the Treasury Management Statement Report for 21-22. Again, Dave Hodgson.
Thank you, Chair. This is the final statutory report, and this sets out the Treasury Management Strategy for the Council. So this is how we manage investments and borrowing decisions. Again, there's no significant changes to the previous year, so I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay. Again, I do see, but I see a hand, but not a blue hand. Councillor Duncan would.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to comment, really, that we've seen quite a number of reports go by, and the public may wonder why questions aren't raised on such significant issues with such detail in. Part of what I wanted to say was my congratulations to Dave Hodgson and his team for doing such a good job of making sure that the exec is fully briefed on the papers before they arrive. So we've had a chance to ask all our questions, as do all councillors have a chance to ask their questions of officers. So that's why I'm not raising questions, because I've already had them answered. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. If there's nobody else, I'll put the recommendations. I'll move the recommendations from the chair.
Seconded, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. So if I can have an indication of support, please. Thank you. Mark?
That's a unanimous vote, Chair. That the recommendations have been carried.
Thank you, Mark. I'll move on to item 11, which is the annual pay policy statement. And we've got a couple of recommendations here, and I'll ask Councillor Pearson to move the recommendations, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we've got two recommendations. The executive recommends that the Council approve the attached policy report and appendices to be adopted and published in accordance with the legislation. 2, that delegated authority be given to the Director of Corporate Services to make the necessary amendments to the pay policy statement following any changes in legislation or subsequent increases in pay.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Pearson. And talking to this is, we've got Ban Alcatravi. Ban, are you with us? Or is it?
Sorry, it's John Cook has been presenting this.
John. Okay, John, if you would like to introduce the paper.
Good afternoon, good evening. Yes, thank you, Chair. The paper is a statutory document which we are tasked to deliver each year. It essentially deals with a number of pay issues. The first one is the relationship between the lowest paid and the chief executive. There is a rule that says if it's more than 1 in 10, 1 to 10, a ratio of 1 to 10, then we're out of kilter. Pleased to report that we're currently at 1 to 6.5, so well within the guidelines, Chair. 2 other noteworthy issues. One is a few years ago, the council adopted the living wage. So our lower graded jobs are at the national living wage. That increases to £9.50 an hour in April of this year, and the council will be adopting that as per previous plans. The other issue of note, I suspect, is the cap imposed by the government, the central government, in terms of a £95,000 payment, and that now must include all severance payments, not just the City Council, but across the UK. So the report, there's nothing out of the ordinary, nothing to note at all, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, John. Okay, I see no hands raised. I'll move. Councillor Pearson has told us about the recommendations. I'll move the recommendations from the chair.
Seconded, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. If I could have an indication of support, please.
That's a unanimous vote, Chair. The recommendations have been carried.
Thank you, Mark. And now I'll move on to item 12, which is the gender pay gap report. And I'll again ask Councillor Pearson to move the recommendations, please.
Thank you, Chair. So the recommendations on this one are that this report will be reviewed annually to track the relationship between both females and males' earnings. The council will publish its gender pay gap report on the Exeter City Council website, as well as on a centrally held database on gov.uk. There are findings and observations. The average rate of pay for females is higher than males across the council. The difference has decreased slightly since last year from 5.25% to 4.59%, and that there are over 3 times more males in the lower quartile of earnings than females.
Okay, thank you. John Cook again. John, would you like to talk to the paper, please?
Yes, Chair. Having said that, the 3 bullet points on the recommendation sheet capture it. This, in essence, is again a statutory report that we're required to deliver that identifies the pay gap between males and females. And as you can see, the City Council is in an enviable position where the pay of females on average is higher than that of males. So we are probably one of bucking the trend a little. So nothing to report, no issues to concern ourselves, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And it's interesting to note that we are a local authority of some over 700 full-time equivalent employees nearly, with a number of part-time employees. We are a significant employer, and we are obviously leading in this area. I'll open it up now. Councillor David Harvey.
Yes, just a quick question, John. John, how do you treat agency staff in this report, or in fact, are they even treated at all?
Yes, they're included in the report, Councillor Harvey.
Thank you.
Okay, good piece of information that, Councillor Harvey. No other questions?
No other hands are raised, Chair.
Thank you, Mark. I'll move the recommendations from the chair.
Seconded, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. Show of indication of support, please.
Yep, that's unanimous, Chair. The recommendations have been carried.
Thank you very much. And now we move on to item 13, which is the delegation of powers to amend the polling districts and polling places. Councillor Pearson to move the recommendation, please.
Thank you, Chair. There's one recommendation. It is recommended that power be delegated to amend the designation of parliamentary and local government polling districts and polling places on a temporary basis to the returning officer of Exeter City Council or acting returning officer or appointed deputy, should it become necessary to do so, at short notice to facilitate the conduct of elections within the City of Exeter, should it become necessary due to any urgent issues which might arise concerning the availability of polling places and polling stations, and where there is insufficient time for amendments to be made and approved by council. That is a very long sentence.
Thank you, Councillor Pearson. And I think John Strict, would you like to, or is it Jeff Chalk? Which one of you two are going to deal with this with us?
I'll introduce it, Leader, if you don't mind, and Jeff's there to ask any more technical questions than I'm able to. But apologies, that is a very long sentence. But as the report describes, the city is divided into polling districts, which allows for the easy administration of polls in the city. This responsibility to the division of the city is a council function, whereas the location of polling stations within these polling districts is my responsibility as returning officer. I brought this report before you this evening as I'm asking the council to give me the ability to change polling districts within the city if necessary at short notice. And I say it is if necessary to do so, and that would also allow me to allow polling to be able to take place within the timescales I have to statutorily abide by within the election process. I must stress that this would very much be the last resort, and if it was necessary to do this, I would contact all agents and candidates affected by this at the earliest opportunity, as well as sitting councillors, so that they are everyone is aware of it as quickly as possible, as well as ensuring that all affected voters will be informed as well. if I just give you a very brief example, it's probably heightened a little bit more this year round because of our preparation for COVID secure polling on the 6th of May now, which has been confirmed, as we all know, following the government announcement last Friday. This gives me the ability that if I suddenly lose a polling station at very short notice, i.e. maybe even the day before poll, it gives me the ability to allow polling to take place in another polling station nearby without the need to have to come back to council to allow that polling district within which the polling station sits to be amended to accommodate that. I do say this is extremely rare, and it is hoped that it would never be put into place, but it gives me the ability to do that and hopefully continue to abide by regulations as necessary. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I say Jeff is here to answer any more technical issues as well.
Okay, thank you, John. That does make sense. I think it's fully understood. I've got no indications of speakers.
No, I can't see any hands raised, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So I'll move that from the chair. I'll move it to a recommendation from the chair.
Seconded, Chair.
Okay, indication of support, please.
That's a unanimous vote, Chair. Those recommendations have been carried.
Thank you, Mark. We'll now move on to item 14, which is amendments to the Council's constitution relating to planning decisions. And I'll ask Councillor Morse to take us through the recommendations, please, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. This report recommends that the Council approve the following changes to the Constitution. The terms of reference for Planning Committee to be amended to include applications referred by the Chair or Vice Chair of Planning Committee. 2, the terms of reference for delegated briefing to be amended to state delegated briefing is a sounding board of members of the Planning Committee that is open to all members, which meets periodically for a briefing on applications where the planning officers are minded to determine them under delegated powers. The Chair or Vice Chair of the Planning Committee reserves the right to refer any applications for determination by the full Planning Committee, having first sought the views of the relevant ward member at any delegated briefing. And 3, the scheme of delegated officers and deputies to include the following delegated powers to the service lead development in consultation with the delegation briefing, applications that have been subject to representations from a statutory consultee that expresses view contrary to the officer's recommendation, and applications that have been subject to objections from a neighbourhood forum where the neighbourhood has adopted neighbourhood plan that officers are minded to approve under delegated powers.
Thank you, Councillor. Roger Clotworthy, hope you're warm enough to be able to talk to your paper.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report and recommendation is to clarify and streamline the process by which a planning or related application may be determined. In other words, there's a need to make it clearer which applications need to go to Planning Committee for a decision and which can be determined under delegated powers. The proposal is to clarify that referral to Planning Committee is at the discretion of the Chair or Vice Chair of the Planning Committee. It is also proposed to make some small amendments to the range of applications that must be referred to delegation briefing before a decision is issued. We propose to refer anything that has an objection from a statutory consultee that an officer wishes to approve, anything with an objection from a neighbourhood forum in wards with an adopted neighbourhood plan, and also the need to remove the need to report spurious objections to delegation briefing by focusing on objections that impact on local amenity. Ward members will still be able to request that any application is referred to delegation briefing if they think it may merit consideration by the Planning Committee. So we don't think that there is any disadvantage to members of these changes. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Roger. I see no hands up to want to speak on this. I think it's fairly straightforward and puts things in order and perspective. So I'll move the recommendations from the Chair.
Seconded, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. Can I have an indication of support, please? There you go.
That is a unanimous vote, Chair. Those recommendations have been carried.
Thank you, Mark. So item 15 is the consultation charter. There is one recommendation here, is that the executive recommends approval of and the council approves the consultation charter. I do want to say something very briefly after, but first of all, I'm going to ask Bruce Luxton to tell us what's all this about and why we need it in the first place. Bruce.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully the report and the charter are self-explanatory. I will give you a brief summary. So the charter formalises the council's overall approach to consultation, and it sets out why, how, where and when the council will consult. It brings consistency to our current arrangements so that we have a more standard approach for the various consultations that we undertake. Importantly, I think it follows best practice, and we've had some feedback from the Consultation Institute, who are the experts in this field. And finally, it's intended to be a living document that will evolve as we continue to consult and build on lessons learned. I'm happy to take any questions. As you'll know, the current recommendation is that the executive approves the consultation charter. In link to some comments you might have about that recommendation, Chair, I have some additional information on that.
Okay, thank you, Bruce. Well, of course, I was asked by Councillor Diana Moore at a recent strategic scrutiny meeting about the consultation process. And I did invite her to email me once it was out in the public domain, the charter we were putting out. And she has indeed. And I had that over the weekend, and we are currently looking at it. So what I'm suggesting is that we approve this now, because we need to have something down formal at this stage. And I'm happy to further excuse me, recommend it to the Strategic Management Programme Board if they want to look at the charter in more detail to see if we can do things better. But I will have to caveat that from the chair to say that please remember the resource situation of this council. I'm already having to charge the portfolio holders with finding reductions over the next 3 years. We are not about introducing an industry on this. It's nice to know that we are conforming to best practice, and we have consulted the Consultation Institute, and so which is very important. But that doesn't mean to say if there are improvements and things we could do better, particularly to be inclusive and to widen our range of consultation, I really do want to do that. So in moving the recommendation, that is what I'm suggesting. I don't feel I need to make that into a recommendation because I've committed this now in public, and I will put it to the Scrutiny Programme Board. So back to you, Bruce, at this stage. You said you were going to come back in.
Yeah, I was just going to reiterate those points, really, Chair, that you've obviously had some supportive feedback about the charter and some points that need clarifying and amending, which I think we can easily rectify. But there are also some new proposals, for example, applying for the Crystal Mark, arranging training for staff and councillors, providing a digital consultation platform, which all have merits, but obviously the impact of each of those proposals will need to be assessed in the context of what resources we have and how we allocate those resources.
Okay, thank you. So there is the recommendation, and I am proposing to consult on the consultation charter. So
we've got a hand raised from Councillor Wood, Chair.
Councillor Wood, where are you?
Thank you, Chair. As a ex-practitioner for public law with regards to how it affects the voluntary sector, I have to say that consultation is one of the key areas where the public sector has failed in the past. And it's good to see a consultation charter of this nature and this quality presented. As has been mentioned, it's always possible to improve on the way the any public body consults, but I think looking through the charter as it stands, a lot of the core principles that make for good consultation are embedded within it. And I'm sure that, well, I know from the work I've already done within the council, that consultation is not just done to follow the letter, it's actually the spirit of consultation is followed. So I'm pleased to see this. And also pleased to hear from the leader that he's still open to it being improved, but there are always cost implications, and from earlier papers it's pretty clear that cost is a factor we need to consider. So thank you. I'm pleased to see.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. I see no further hands or indications at this moment.
John Street has his hand.
John Street, you want to come back?
Sorry, Chair, you know I'm always Mr. Badantia and trying to stick to things about standing orders, etc. I'm just cautious about the approach. I appreciate the approach you're taking, but I'm just saying that if you approve the recommendation tonight, it would go to Council on the 23rd of April for approval. That may well be before Scrutiny Programme Board has the opportunity to consider whether it wishes it to be considered by for example, a task and finish group or a spotlight review. So maybe the recommendation should be changed that it be approved for sending to Council, subject to any comments that the Scrutiny Programme Board may have at its forthcoming meeting, which I think is next week anyway.
Okay, well, I'm happy to amend that. And I know, and you're quite right to remind me that what's down is counting. But if I give a commitment and this group gives a commitment to do something, John, we'll stand by that commitment, if you know what I mean. I'm not going to play with words, but if that is the constitutional way for dealing with this, then I will obviously support that. So what you're saying is, do we need to amend this now, John?
I think if Mark could put the recommendation back up on the page again, we could probably just add in some words along the lines of subject to consideration by the Scrutiny Programme Board at its forthcoming meeting.
There you go, you've got it. So, subject to consideration of the Scrutiny Programme Board at its forthcoming meeting, are we happy to approve the recommendation with that verbal amendment? There you go, Mark.
That is a unanimous approval, Chair, on that amended recommendation, and that's been carried as amended.
And thank you. And again, thank you, John, for making sure that we've complied with the standing orders. Moving on to item 16 now. Here we are. This won't take long. We've got the item 16 is the General Buller Statute update, and I will ask Councillor Gussain to talk us through and read the recommendations, please. Councillor Gussain.
Recommendations in a paper titled General Buller Statute Review, which came before Executive on January 12th. Members agreed to formally consult with local people via the planning process in order that they could formally record their views regarding the possible relocation of the statue. Recommendations 2.2 read that without prejudice to a final decision on the matter, an application be made for listed buildings consent for the relocation of the statue to an alternative location. This will provide an opportunity for public consultation on the proposed recommendations by the task and finish group prior to a final determination of the matter by Council. The recommendation currently awaits Council approval on 3rd. However, since Executive met, Government announced their wish to legislate for an ability to call in and likely overturn any such formal planning decision about the statue, should local views be in favour of relocation. In light of this announcement, it is recommended 2.2 be withdrawn and the application for listed building consent for relocation and the formal consultation now not take place. All other recommendations in the report remained unchanged. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Gussain. John Paul Hedge, please, if you'd like to talk us through. What's happening, John?
So just to paraphrase that really, so you remember that councillors voted to talk to the people of Exeter about the Buller statute. That decision itself would needed to have been ratified at the next council meeting. No decision around the future of the statute was made by council, only that people would be formally consulted about it. And it was relocation, not removal, on the cards. So at the time, the report highlighted to members that there was no money. If you remember, we were told about the medium-term financial plan. And should that formal planning consultation come back as a yes, the matter would have needed to go back to council to request the money. Since executive met, and the reason this paper is coming back to you today, is that government have announced their wish to legislate for the ability to call in and what would likely be overturn any such formal planning decision. Therefore, a simple recommendation before you tonight is not to proceed with that aspect, but to proceed with the rest of the paper as it was outlined.
Thank you, Johnny P. So as long as everybody, and particularly those people watching, understand exactly what's going on, there is no proposal to remove the Buller statute. Let me just say that once more, so it's perfectly clear. There is no proposal to remove the Buller statute. I hope that's clear. I hope that's clear. And we're not talking about that at all. So, do we have anybody else want to make a contribution? No, not really, because we had it all on the last time. Thank you very much. I'll move the recommendations to go to full council from the chair.
Seconded, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sutton. Mark.
Okay, just have a show of hands, please, on these recommendations. That is unanimous, Chair. Those recommendations have been carried.
Okay. And I think we now move to item 17, which is the new office for the Corn Exchange. And here we have two recommendations, which we approve for the vacant retail unit 89 4th Street to be used as a public-facing office / box office for the Corn Exchange, and to approve the proposal to remove the rental income requirement within the budget of the corporate property estates for this unit. So, John Paul Hedge, if you could tell us what all that means.
No problem. So the current venue office, if you've not been in there, it's not fit for purpose in terms of members of the public going up there. It presents accessibility issues, let alone aesthetics. The office is at the rear of the venue, and you have to buzz at the door, and then you go up an internal staircase. I think you remember how much Jim Davidson publicly took umbrage at the situation we have down there. This would move the staff that currently work upstairs in the building downstairs into a public facing building. So this is the use of 89 4th Street. And if we use that as an office, it would provide future opportunities to increase the income of the Corn Exchange when we're back open again, to work with partners across our city, and also for the hosting of other council services. Developing the facility would also provide a boost to the business environment in that part of the there is no financial ask, no increased financial ask before you tonight to achieve this, just as outlined there with regards to corporate property.
Okay, thank you. I've got Councillor Sutton who'd like to come in. Councillor Sutton.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I really welcome this report, and obviously at the moment we haven't got any live performances going on and roll on the day when people can go back and watch live performances. But this, I think, is going to make a massive difference to the Corn Exchange. I mean, at the moment, if you want to buy a ticket from the Corn Exchange, you practically need a kind of detailed route map and a trail of breadcrumbs to make sure you get back out again. Sort of round the corner, up the stairs. Kind of knock 3 times on the door, and this street level presence where people are actually walking to and fro. There are bus stops nearby. There's a taxi rank nearby. A lot of people will be able to see advertisements for the performances, wander in, have a chat, maybe pick up leaflets for other things, and actually book, and also, as John Paul Hedges explained, also find out about other council services. So I don't think we can underestimate the potential positive impact of having a visible street level presence for this venue, which does incredibly well, but I think it's going to help it do even better. As I say, just because people will have those extra opportunities, maybe while they're kind of standing at the bus stop and think, oh, that looks interesting, maybe we could go to that. So yeah, sooner we can do this, the better.
Okay, thank you. Not before time. I don't see any more hands, so we got the 2 recommendations. I'm going to move them from the chair.
Happy to second them, Chair.
Okay. Did you want to come back in on that? You for it, Councillor Morse, or?
Yeah, I was getting ready to vote and got overexcited, to be honest.
Good. Yeah, contain your enthusiasm and we'll be fine. Not long to go now. So that's moved from the chair. Mark.
Yeah, can I have a show of hands from councillors, please? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That is unanimous, Chair, in favour. The recommendations have been carried.
Okay, and now we move to item 18, which is the last matter for the public meeting, which is the Public Spaces Protection Order Renewal. Councillor Fole, if you can just tell us briefly what this recommendation is doing for us.
Okay, the recommendation is that the Executive supports and Council resolves to renew the Public Space Protection Order on the existing boundaries defined by the attached map and prohibitions Appendix A for a period of 1 year from the commencement date of the 20th of June 2021. Secondly, that the Executive allows the Service Lead, Environmental Health and Community Safety to authorise staff within the Environmental Health and Community Safety Service to be able to enforce the prohibitions of the PSPO. And thirdly and finally, Executive recommends that Council resolves to continue the current policy of funding received by the Council from fixed penalty notice issued for a breach of any PSPO to be ring-fenced for initiatives to address antisocial behaviour, and that this funding continue to be administered through the Exeter Community Safety Partnership.
Okay, thank you. And I'll ask Simon Lane. Is it David Bartram or Simon Lane going to speak on this one, guys?
Simon's going to speak, if that's okay, Chair.
Okay, absolutely. Simon.
Thank you, Chair. The only thing I have to add is in line with the requirements under the Act. I have written to the Chief Constable of Devon and Cornwall Police, the Police and Crime Commissioner, and the Chief Executive of Devon County Council. I believe that letters received from the Chief Constable, his Superintendent for the Exeter East and Mid Devon area, and the Police and Crime Commissioner have been circulated as a late appendix to my report. We've not received anything back from the Chief Executive of Devon County as of yet. In addition to that, through the Community Safety Partnership, all members received a briefing a couple of weeks ago with respect to this report, and have also been formally written to, which is made up of a broad spectrum of voluntary, business and other statutory services. And to date, no representations or comments have been received back from any of the partners.
Thank you, Simon. Do I have some indications? No. Well, yes, before we go into the debate, Kevin, what would you like to tell us? Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Leader. I would actually just like to welcome this report. I very much support the measures that have been in place previously as they affect a portion of my ward and the city centre, and have been effective in the past. So I'm very pleased that they're going to be extended. And I also very much welcome part 2 of the recommendation, because hopefully that will ensure greater enforcement of the matters that are within the report. So I would just like to welcome this, Leader.
Thank you, Kevin. Do we have any other contributions from members? No? Okay.
No other hands raised, Chair.
I'll move the recommendations from the chair.
Seconded, Chair.
Thank you. Can we have a show of support, please?
That's a unanimous vote in favour, Chair. The recommendations have been carried.
Thank you. We now move to where I will propose that we vote in accordance with the local government exclusion of the press and public, to exclude the press and public, because we have 2 items which are of a commercial sensitive nature. I'll move that from the chair.
Can we have a seconder, please? Councillor Sutton. Councillor Sutton, second. Thank you.
So all in favour to move to part 2?
That looks that's mostly unanimous, Chair. Is Councillor Harvey? Oh, that's now unanimous. Yeah, Chair. That's a full unanimous vote to move the meeting to part 2. Okay. At which point I'll ask Steve